Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have an amazing career panel for you filled with some incredible Sheridan alumni from the animal care and vet tech programs. My name is Alicia Siegwire, and I'm the Alumni Coordinator of Special Projects at Sheridan College. And beside me is my colleague, Sandra Yu from Sheridan's Career Integrated Learning Services. For those of you who are graduating soon or have already graduated, Sheridan Alumni Office is here to support you. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us at any time. We love hearing from our grads. Share your ideas for events, ask us questions, and of course, share your great news stories with us. Throughout the panel discussion, we encourage you to use the chat function located at the right side of your screen and ask our panelists questions. We will be moderating the chat and will relay any questions or comments to the panelists. Let's get started. Please join me in welcoming our animal care and vet tech alumni panelists, Aidan, Samantha, and Hannah. Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
So
we're good afternoon now. It's not morning.
So I thought that maybe we could all start off with taking a few minutes, and if you could each introduce yourself and briefly tell us about your role and your key responsibilities, and kind of your career story and how you went from being at Sheridan to where you are now. Samantha, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Samantha Jagt. I'm really excited to be here and chat with everybody. I work now with BC and Alberta Guide Dogs. So Hannah said good morning, and it is still, in fact, good morning for me. It's 10:30 where I am. So I'm living in Victoria, BC. The organization that I work for is based out of the mainland of BC, but I'm my own little island over here on Vancouver Island. I'm seeing in the chat that we've got a few people from my previous employer, so I'll share my history as well. But right now with BC and Alberta Guide Dogs, I am a puppy training supervisor, which, yes, it says it on the back of my shirt. It is a real job title, and it is as cool as it sounds. I have right now I've got 31 puppies under my supervision that are all placed with volunteer puppy raisers who are training those dogs for the first 1.5 to 2 years of their life, and then they go off for more formalized advanced training to become either a guide dog, autism support dog, or PTSD service dog, which is what our organization provides across British Columbia and Alberta. We are a charity, so all of our dogs are given to the recipients free of charge, and we do all of their formal training, all of their aftercare, etc. with the dogs, and then see them through to retirement. My responsibilities, so all of our dogs are given to the recipients free of charge.
Does somebody have
their formal training, all of their aftercare,
the stage open in another tab
with the dogs, and then see them through to retirement? My responsibilities, all of our dogs are given to the recipients free of charge.
Does somebody have
their formal training, all of their aftercare,
the stage open in another tab?
I don't.
Okay, I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was chatting about, my roles specifically. So I oversee 31 puppies. I am responsible for a lot of everything with them because, like I said, I'm my own little region. So my main responsibilities include making sure I have an adequate supply of volunteers to raise the puppies, making sure the volunteers are properly prepared for receiving their puppies, and then I am responsible for all the training of those dogs under the tutelage of their volunteers. So I do all of the puppy obedience classes. I do one-on-one meetings and assessments with the volunteers. And I'm also responsible for the vet care, ordering all the food they need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like I said, those pups remain with me from 8 weeks of age all the way until about, we like to say, between 14 to 24 months of age when they go into their more formal training and they pick their career path from there. And then they're off and going from there. So my career, my path to here. I did an undergrad at the University of Western, and then didn't know what I was going to do in my 4th year, was wondering, what am I supposed to do after this? So I started researching a lot of different things, ended up landing on the animal care program at Sheridan, and I'm really happy I did. I knew I wanted to work with animals, but I really, really wasn't sure how. So this was a great way to gain more knowledge about the industry itself and really figure out what I wanted to do. I did my co-ops. I split my co-op time between working dogs, bomb detection dog trainer, and then between Lions Foundation of Canada Dog Guides, which is another service dog guide dog organization that's in Ontario. So I started there and then ended up being able to gain employment with Lions Foundation. From Lions Foundation, I started in a very glamorous role as a kennel staff, from part-time to full-time, where the skills that I had for both grooming turned out to be very handy. All the vet information I had turned out to be very handy, and surprisingly, the experience, I'd never cleaned a litter box before starting in the animal care program and doing all of that. So I actually used that in my kennel program at Lions Foundation, because they have cats in their kennels to help socialize the dogs. So that came super handy as well. So from there, I progressed with Lions and started with the puppy program, and started doing the same role I'm doing here, just on a different kind of scale. The programs run a little bit different. So me and 4 other co-workers managed 300 puppies and their volunteers. And then I had a job opening in Victoria with another organization, and made the move to BC. And can't complain. So I've been with BC and Alberta Guide Dogs for 4 years now. I think that's my career story.
That's awesome. Thanks you so much, Sam. Hannah, would you like to go next?
Sure. So hello, everyone. I'm Hannah. I work at the Toronto Zoo currently. I am a veterinary technician there. I've been in this role for about a year and a half almost, but only got full-time about in November. So currently what we do as veterinary technicians at the Toronto Zoo is we do a variety of different things. And how it kind of works is we don't just work with dogs and cats, we work with all sorts of species. We work from smaller animals or insects almost, sometimes as small as tarantulas or smaller birds or smaller rodents, and all the way up to ostriches, rhinos, giraffes, horses, you name it, we can go very big. And it can get quite challenging on how we tackle each individual animal, because each animal requires something different needed for its procedure, or even how we work with the animal. So we deal with their anesthesia. So when we do surgeries or when we do just regular checkups, most animals we can't just do a physical on them just awake. Some animals we are able to, but most of them we are not. So we often are requiring to monitor the animal. We have to help out with x-rays, take blood work. We monitor the animal, so checking the heart rate and all the parameters that we would use. And then we also do the laboratory work there. So we run most of our blood work in-house. If we're unable to, we often send it out for diagnostics, mostly at IDEX. I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with that company. But we often do our own lab work. So we do our own screening of CBCs. We also then do in-house checks we have our own catalyst machine to do our chemistries. We do our own fecals, our own urine. So you learn a lot in it. You have to learn a lot of differences, what are abnormal versus normal, because most often in clinics, you don't get a chance to see so many different species and how everything looks so different. So it's quite a learning curve for that, but it's really a lot of fun. We also participate in training. So we have a training kind of group or committee. We have 3 technicians here. We all go out and we have some animals that we work with and some we work with all of them. For example, I work with the gorillas. So that's kind of my project one. So I work with all the gorillas to try and find out which best way, as we're moving moving forward with what we need to be able to do. Because it's not easy to, for example, anesthetize a gorilla. If we can do vaccines just voluntarily, it's quite important that we work and keep up with the training with them for that. So right now, we're trying to figure out if we're going to be doing COVID vaccines for them. So we're trying to get them prepared and work with training that way. That way we can keep moving them forward in case we are doing them, which we are planning to. We also maintain the drug logs, and we keep up with all of our drugs and antibiotics and everything that we keep in the hospital. We try to do as much inventory as we can to make sure that we have enough in case an animal unfortunately starts crashing, because a lot of our drugs, we need so much for these larger animals. It's hard to sometimes make sure that you have enough in case multiple animals can go that day. Another thing is we do patient care. So any animal that needs treatments on site or anything that we're able to do quite easily, then we'll often do that. And especially with neonate care, if we have an animal born that's not doing well or a mother rejects it, if we decide to hand raise it, it sometimes can mean that we have to do overnights here, even at the zoo, and do the feedings at night. So we have to sleep at the zoo sometimes to make sure that we can provide the best care for our animals. Another thing that we always have to consider is doing on-site versus hospital, or we're bringing them in. We do have a viewing gallery here, so we're kind of always on display here at the Toronto Zoo. It's been a little tricky since COVID, so we haven't had anybody come into our viewing gallery. So, but we often do procedures on site and in hospital, which means it's a different requirement for what kind of stuff you bring, because we pack for everything possible, because you never know what's going to happen. Or if you have an emergency that you got to leave a procedure as soon as the animal's awake and go do another one right away. We also help with x-rays. We have a digital machine here, which makes it very nice, and we're very hands-off when we do them. We really try not to be there. So we're very trying to follow the best health and safety standards that we can. Surgery as well, we participate in surgery. Most often we do the anesthetics for it, or the anesthesia for it, and just make sure that everything goes smoothly for our animals. So my kind of pathway here is that I actually did the animal care program too back in 2013. Back in 2013. Worked at an animal hospital for a while, for about 4 years after that. And then went into moved to kind of a zoo area a little bit, went to go be a keeper at a smaller zoo, and went and did my vet tech program later on as well. And then in 2018, I graduated vet tech. I did about 1.5 years at the Toronto Wildlife Center, made it up to working in their medical kind of tier that they kind of do there. And then I have been volunteering with Hands-On Exotics. I've done, I'm trying to go back and think everything that I've done. I've volunteered with Ontario Parks a little bit as well. Also worked at a exotic veterinary clinic out in Pickering. I worked at Millennium City Veterinary Hospital. And then I got my co-op at the Toronto Zoo, working after school, did my co-op here in the veterinary tech department, and then kind of stayed on as a keeper, and then kind of some stuff here and there, but now working in the veterinary technician department at the zoo. That's kind of it.
That's great. Thanks, Anna. Did you work with the new baby tiger?
Yes. Yeah, I worked with her and her 2 siblings when they were all born. Yeah, she's getting quite big now.
Yes. I can't wait to see her. We have a visit.
Yeah, the new naming contest is out, so you can give your opinion on what you want for her name.
Yeah. So Aidan, would you like to go next?
Sure. So my name is Aidan Maurin-Jones. I am the head veterinary assistant at the Lynx Road Animal and Bird Clinic. I have been working there since August 2015. We are an exotic animal clinic, so we don't see any dogs or cats. We see a wide variety of species, including parrots, birds of prey, small mammals like rabbits, guinea pigs, and chinchillas, and reptiles such as snakes, lizards, turtles, and tortoises. In my time there, I've personally worked with over 230 different species, not including all of the different subspecies and morphs that we often see. As the head veterinary assistant, my responsibilities include supervising and training all of the vet assistants that we have and hire. and making sure that all of the animals in the clinic get the care they need and deserve. So this often includes doing cleaning, feeding patients, setting up, taking and assisting with x-rays, sometimes assisting with surgeries, and catching and restraining patients for various procedures. It also includes setting up boarding animals, wrapping surgical kits, and so much more. Every day is a bit different for me. It can include a wide variety of things. I could go from catching a wild bald eagle to restraining a hamster for subacute fluids and everything in between. I like the unpredictable nature because it keeps it interesting. And yeah, it keeps it interesting and challenging for me. As far as how I got to here, it was before Sheridan, I did a co-op placement in high school at a vet clinic, and soon after starting that, I got hired as a veterinary assistant there. And while working there, I got accepted into the animal care program. While at Sheridan, I volunteered with exotic animals as much as I could, knowing that's what I wanted to do once I finished the program. After Sheridan, I worked at a shelter as the veterinary assistant for their special species departments, and basically that's literally anything that's not a cat or a dog. So it was all of the rabbits, guinea pigs, mice, hamsters, birds, all of that stuff that gets surrendered. And usually we had between 50 and 100 animals at a time in my care. After a little while of doing that, I began to really miss the clinical setting of working in a clinic. And I left doing that and did some locum work at a dog or cat clinic. Soon realized that wasn't really for me. Their 2 species was just not enough. And I looked for another job working with exotics, and eventually applied to the Lynx Road Animal and Bird Clinic. There wasn't a job posting, but I'd taken my animal there before, and I knew that they had a really great reputation. And within 2 weeks of applying, I had a working interview. I was hired and started working there full time, and the rest is history. That's it. Thanks.
So amazing. I love all 3 of you. Like, your stories are so amazing. And I never thought, like, I never grew up with pets, and so this is all new to me, right? But it's so inspiring. Anyway, I do want to learn a little bit more. So my next question is just, can you tell us what you find most enjoyable about your job? And so first, A, your job, and B, working within your organization. And then the second part of the question is what you find most challenging. Maybe we'll start with Samantha.
Yeah, sounds good. I think most of my answer to that question is going to echo something that Aidan said about problem solving and things always changing and needing to be on your toes. Definitely not as fast paced as being in the veterinary industry. But for me, working with dogs and working with volunteers does mean that there's a great deal of problem solving to get the training in that we need to, in a way that works for the dog, the volunteer, and then together as a team. So I definitely really enjoy that. And then on that flip side of what's the most challenging, that as well. Challenging in a great way, but also can present some really unique challenges that can be pretty frustrating. But most of the time it's pretty good. For my organization, I really have enjoyed working with volunteers. Before coming to Sheridan, when I was at Western, I was working with the Safe Walk program on that campus, working with volunteers as well. And I've always really enjoyed working with volunteers, and now especially knowing I volunteer myself as well for the organizations that I work for. So knowing what goes into it and seeing firsthand everything that those volunteers give to the organization and to the people who they may never even meet that their dog could go to is just, it's really inspiring. And I really enjoy working and having the opportunity to work with these people.
Thanks, Samantha. Hannah, would you like to go next?
Sure. Sorry, can you repeat kind of the first part of the question? I think I lost it a little bit there. You guys cut out for a second.
Okay. Yeah. What specifically would you say you most enjoy about A, your job, and B, working at your organization? And then what do you find most challenging?
Okay. All right. So for my job in particular, kind of similar both to Samantha and Aidan, it's problem solving. You're working with so many different species here at the zoo. We have so many. You're, again, working from tiny things up to incredibly large. You have to consider everything. And a lot of these species, some of them, don't have much information on them. It's not just like a species that is quite commonly done. So a lot of problem solving as well goes into that. For my job personally, I love laboratory work. It's kind of a passion of mine. So it's how I treat it is that for the other joyous part of my job is that, laboratory work, it's kind of like being a detective. You have to kind of figure out what's wrong and look at what abnormalities in blood work or urine or fecal like parasites and stuff to see what kind of could be contributing to these factors on species that you don't get to always have hands-on if you need them to come back in, not like a regular client at all where you can just easily bring them back in. You kind of only get sometimes that 1 or 2 shots that you'd be able to make a difference and see what you can do. So it's very challenging in that way. I'd probably say that's one of the most challenging bits is that you don't get that easy hands-on sometimes. But yeah, working with this organization, though, it's incredible. We have such an amazing, dedicated group of individuals here. We have right now probably about 400 staff on, including our seasonals right now. And everybody has the same goal as you. You're working towards the same thing. Everybody has that same mindset on how they can do better and always improve for the zoo alone too. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Aidan, would you like to go next? And do you want me to repeat the question? So what do you find most enjoyable at your work? Okay, great.
So as far as the job, whenever I can make a difference in an animal's life is awesome, and if I can put a smile on the client's face, that's also fantastic. And it's definitely the variety as well. But as far as the organization, as long as I've been there, I'm still surrounded by people that know way more than I do and have more experience. A lot of my coworkers have been there for 20 or even 30 plus years. So I'm always learning something new, and that keeps it really awesome and interesting. As far as the most challenging thing, it can be frustrating at times and I honestly feel bad for some of our clients and the animals with how, compared to dogs and cats, how there's tons of information regarding their care, and it's easily accessible to them. With exotics, often people just don't know where to look, and they don't know, and they hide sickness a lot better, or they tend to, than dogs and cats. And by the time that they come to us, sometimes it's too late, and that can be tough. But yeah, that's about it.
Perfect. Thanks, Aidan. We do have a couple questions in the chat that I just wanted to get to. This one is for Hannah. Hi, Hannah. How did you get started with the Toronto Zoo? And what skills, education, or experience would you recommend to someone interested in a career with the Toronto Zoo?
So for sure. So I'll start with I'll first give a little bit of backstory on how you can kind of work your way into the zoo. So definitely doing, as the key thing, if you're looking to get into veterinary technician, or if you're just even looking to get into zookeeping, experience is key. Getting a lot of hands-on experience and working with a lot of different animals, even in zookeeping, can really help. It really makes a difference. For veterinary technician now in particular, lab work is huge. Because we do so much hands-on and we look at everything, for most animal clinics, often they send out blood work, even for most dogs and cats. And I don't know about Aidan, for you guys, how much lab work you guys do in. But we look at everything, and it's very hard to find people with experience that know lab work quite well when they start here. It's a very steep learning curve if you don't very know it well. So that's probably a key thing. And yeah, working with so many different animals, learning handling techniques. So wherever you can kind of get your foot into a clinic to start and then work up and volunteer. Toronto Wildlife Center is a great place to volunteer to try and get that beginner handling experience. Like I started working with pigeons there, and that was such a great stepping stone because it teaches you how to handle birds and ones that just generally need to be cared for. So that's a great way. Doing courses online is always good, and just really trying to learn as much. I've done a few courses off of, done a few courses kind of everywhere, but anywhere you look, like Vispin, if you go to there, if you go to, I've done ones from Coursera, even just to kind of gain experience from anywhere. It doesn't even have to be directly related to animals because we work with such a large team. HR, human resources, and working with a team is so important as well that you have to consider. You can't just be a one man alone working in this field because you can't. There's so many things that go into this. So you have to know how to work in a large group and how to work individually well too. Yeah, so that's really important. And I'm sorry, what was the first bit of the question?
How did you get started with the Toronto Zoo? Which I think you said it was your.
So that one for me. Yeah, so I had my co-op here. So when I was doing my last year of school, I was able to get my position in with the Toronto Zoo. And so I was there for I changed my schedule a little bit so I was able to do it because at that point we had a strike. So I had to play around with my schedule to make sure that I could graduate and also do it because I really wanted to. So unfortunately, after my co-op, I couldn't find a way to stay on as a technician. So I applied to do their seasonal wildlife care position. So I got into that, and you could only be there for the summers most often when you first start out. Sometimes you can go a little bit more into the fall, but my hours weren't there enough. So then I went into a clinic. I went and worked at Millennium City Veterinary Hospital out in Pickering. And they really they're a smaller exotic animal clinic as well. And I got to learn so much handling technique and kind of learn the veterinary technician side of it. Again, we didn't do a lot of lab work, but it was able to teach me handling the drugs that are commonly used and how to work with kind of a veterinary team side of it. Then I also went back as seasonal back to the zoo, did some more animal experience with them. I did their shows and as well as their outreach program. Went and worked at PetSmart for a little bit because I had to find something to do in the off season and kind of also worked for the Toronto Zoo. I was working in IT there, so the more I could stay in the zoo and keep my hours up and make sure I had an opportunity to apply for internal positions really helped. And then throughout COVID, when COVID first happened, we had to separate into teams here. So I was actually pulled in from the IT department to come help out because not many people were registered veterinary technicians, and that's what we require here. So doing that, it was a little bit tricky to work in teams because I never got to meet the other half of the team until July. And then I applied for their casual position, got that, and then I went for their full-time last year. So yeah, that's kind of the backstory from when I graduated from there. But there's a lot of experience prior to that I did because you need that kind of experience if you want to work for a place that's very competitive since it's one of the only zoos in Canada that's super large and has a very large collection.
Great.
Yeah.
And then Sandra, correct me if I'm wrong, but the zoo is here today, right? And in the Career Expo.
I just posted in the chat in Lions Foundation as well, and Toronto Wildlife Center, they're here. So yeah, I would just encourage everyone to check out all of the booths.
Great, yeah, because the other question is volunteer co-op opportunities. So you guys can obviously check out the Career Expo, and they would be more than happy to answer those questions. Aidan, I do have a question for you. So even though you work in a exotic animal clinic, would your day-to-day operations be the same as if you were working in a, I don't want to say normal, but in a regular vet clinic?
Yeah, so it looks the same. We have appointments just like every other clinic. We have specific surgery days. It's just take whatever dog or cat you might see and replace it with something else. So, yeah, and to Hannah's point about getting experience, we are actually hiring right now for a vet assistant position and a reception position. Both are part-time. So, and if you're interested, I can put the information down in the chat. So, but yeah, it looks basically the same as a regular dog and cat clinic, but again, you just replace whatever is with an exotic. Yeah.
Perfect. And then one last question in the chat is, do petting zoos need to be inspected just like real big zoos? I guess this one's for Hannah, if you know. Or if anybody knows.
Depending on the zoo, some smaller zoos don't have to be inspected, I believe, but most often a lot of, depending on what the requirements that they're trying to go for or what they're kind of doing, some don't need to, but often a lot of accreditation facilities will come out anyway, just to make sure that animal care standards are up and that they're looking good and it's something that they don't need to look into. For the Toronto Zoo, we don't have a petting zoo here, so we don't really worry about that, but we do have our own accreditation facilities working with CASA, so the Canadian Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and as well as AZA, the American Association. So we always have people coming out and checking and making sure that everything's up to standard.
Okay. Sandra, do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to follow up. So, Hannah, you were great to share some tips on how to get into the Toronto Zoo, but I'm wondering if Samantha and Aidan, you can share some of your tips on how students and new grads can do what you do if they're interested. Maybe we'll start with Samantha.
Yeah, absolutely. I think experience really does help. So I think taking thinking of Toronto Zoo kind of idea of Toronto Zoo, like Hannah said, it's hard to get into. It's one of the only ones. So you do kind of have to extrapolate what kind of things the Toronto Zoo might be looking for, or what kind of things BC and Alberta guide dogs or something like that might be looking for. And find that experience where you can, whether that's volunteering, whether that's part-time work, or something full-time where it's not exactly what your end goal is, but it's helping you get there. Like I said, when I started at Lions Foundation, I started cleaning kennels. And so I got my foot in the door that way. It wasn't a long-term goal for me. It was great experience. I got a ton of veterinary experience. I got a ton of working around a variety of different dogs in different stages of their training. And I got to meet a lot of different staff and see positions within that industry that interested me and gain more experience there. So I think being open-minded can really help in order to find these little holes where you might be interested, and getting to know your industry as well as you can in a variety of ways can really help. Like I said, volunteering also really helps. So I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce my training assistant. He's sleeping on the job right now. So Norman, can you wake up and say hello? We'll see. Oh my goodness. He is a puppy, technically, but he's 17 months and 60 pounds, so he's a little bit big. Hi. So technically volunteer for me. So I manage all the volunteers that do what I'm doing with him as a volunteer, but same thing with Lions. One of the first things I did when I started working in their kennels after I graduated from animal care and had some more time, I started volunteering with them. So that was really important to me. I love volunteering. I love working with volunteers, but I also love being a volunteer. and you get to start to get to know, again, you get to know the industry. You get some recognition. You get something to put on your resume. You get some experience. Even if it's something that looks simple, it still really helps. He's back to sleep already, so guess I'm not interesting enough.
Thanks, Samantha. Aidan, do you have any tips that you'd like to share with students about how they can get into exotics, or specifically if they're interested in working with lynx?
Yeah, so again, volunteering, gain as much experience as you can with exotics is a great asset. We do train everyone from the ground up. And again, we are hiring. I will put the email address that you can email your application to if you are applying for the part-time vet assistant job. You will be trained by myself. If it's for the reception job, you will be trained by someone else. But again, just volunteering, having your own exotic pets, it's a great way to learn as well. But yeah, that's about it.
Great, thank you. So in your opinion, what part did networking play in your career journey? Because you guys have talked a lot about volunteering, so I know volunteering, networking all goes hand in hand. So do you have any recommendations on how students can network within your field? Samantha, why don't we start with you? Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely networking played a really big role. Being a known face around the organization, when I started with Lions Foundation, I was in one of the kennel buildings that's a little bit further removed from the main training spaces, but I did make a point to find excuses to get in and get into the main training areas, so that I wasn't just, that new person in kennel. People started to recognize me, know my name. I got to meet people, and really was able to network in that way within the organization, which also actually helped me. When I started looking for another job, it was through a former coworker who said, "Hey, did you know BC Guide Dogs was hiring?" And I wouldn't have known, because I probably wouldn't have looked to move to British Columbia. So I'm very grateful for that, because that networking was really able to get me out into beautiful BC. But yeah, I would definitely say it can be really uncomfortable, but putting yourself out there is a really great way to get more experience. Maybe be thought of, whether you're in a large organization where there might be little opportunities to get some more experience. And if somebody knows you, they might go, "Hey, you know what? I think this person could probably help us out if we need an extra set of hands today." And you start gaining experience, getting yourself a little bit more known, can be really helpful.
Hannah, do you want to touch on that as well?
Sure. Yeah, Samantha pretty much took the words out of my mouth for a lot of them. But yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is putting yourself out there. Exactly like she said. It's so huge, because at least for the zoo here, it's so important to network, because it's so large. You would never know what kind of career or people know that you have this interest, or something that you might fit into a different position here. And you had no idea that it was even a thing until you start talking to more people. So like here at the zoo, we have volunteer days that we can go help out at different, like if we have World Giraffe Day and there's a booth set up, you can work with the keepers or work with other departments that are also participating in it, that you can just go and meet people, because it's so large, there's so much to learn. And so there's just so much, it's a lot sometimes. So another thing that I found really helpful for me was LinkedIn. As networking for me, I honestly reached out to a bunch of people, and I saw that they worked at Toronto Zoo or worked at other facilities that I was curious to learn about. And just sending them a message, be like, "Hey, I'm super curious to know what you kind of do. Could you give me an insight to your job?" And you kind of can find a way to keep talking with them a little bit, which really helps. And they can also give you ideas of how you can gain more experience, or something that helps set you aside which was huge. Again, something for the zoo side of it and for veterinary technicians is another resource that I use other than LinkedIn is the Association of Zoo Veterinary Technicians. And it's kind of like an association of zoo veterinary technicians. We have everybody from all over America that all go into this giant forum, and we can all chat about all issues, and you can meet people or get their email addresses and conferences. It's a great way that we played into networking here. We use it so much, and working with and kind of like Aidan said, with working with animals that you don't get a lot of information from, you can get this information because another zoo might have it. So networking is huge, especially with animals, as the pool of information can get smaller and smaller. And yeah, again, like Samantha said, taking advantage of opportunities. If you're able to go out and do something and you have the day free, I would totally take advantage of it because it's just extra experience, and it can just help open your eyes to opportunities that might not have been there, or things you might want to do if you want a career change at some point and know what you like and not like.
And to touch on like all the volunteer experience that you guys have talked about, you never know who you're going to meet and who else is volunteering and where that can lead you to another job or another opportunity. So it's so important to get out there and network with a whole bunch of different people. And I know sometimes volunteering is like, but I really need the money. I have bills to pay, right? But it's so important because you never know where that could lead you. So, Aidan, do you have any more to touch on that?
Yeah, be nice to everyone. Treat everyone with respect. If you are, another thing is volunteer to do the jobs that no one else wants to do. Ask questions. Show that you're eager to learn. Right? It really helped me. Within a couple of months of starting at Lynx, I was one of the techs said to a doctor that was going to a zoo kind of organization to do a whole bunch of health checkups on animals, and said, why don't you take it? And he sounds interested. And it's just make your interests known and volunteer to do things instead of waiting to be asked. That's basically it.
Thank you for that. I see that there's a few questions in the chat. Maybe I'll read them out. So the first one is about working interviews and what can students expect during a working interview. Samantha, do you want to start?
Yeah, I did have a working interview with the question, I think I saw it going, was specific to veterinary clinics. And I did have a working interview when I started with my puppy position at Lions, and they threw me into a puppy vaccination clinic and then our puppy class. So we did the vaccination clinic, puppies got their vaccines, and then they did a little bit of a puppy class. So I did, my first working interview was in fact in a vet clinic setting. And I think asking questions, I really liked what Aidan said there. Asking questions can be really helpful with that. But I can't say I would know exactly because I've only had that one in that setting. But from my experience, hanging out, being available to handle as needed, stepping in with your handling experience as you can, but asking, do you want me to do this? Trying to be pretty assertive in that, asking to make sure that that's what the tech or the veterinarian needs at that point, but being assertive of saying, hey, I know how to do this if you'd like me to help with this, or hey, I think this is the next step. Do you want me to go prepare this? Can be really helpful, and showing that you've got some skills and knowledge in that frame.
So initiative matters. Okay, thanks. Hannah, do you want to go next? Do you have any additional thoughts to add and share about your experience with working interviews?
Well, I think, yeah, so initiative, exactly what you guys said. I think that's huge. You can always kind of tell, at least for myself, who's really keen and interested and who wants to be there. Employers can tell if you have that drive that you want to be there, and having that drive and showing you want to be there, asking questions, asking, can I help with that? Being available, both like Aidan and Samantha just said beforehand, it's huge. You can definitely tell if an employer, if this is going to be a right fit for you, if they feel that, because they're going to feel that energy that's going to help liven up their own company or their own clinic. That's going to be huge. For us here at the Toronto Zoo, we don't really do a working interview per se, but we do kind of you have a laboratory side of it. So you do have to kind of do a little bit of work in it. And yeah, we kind of get a feeling to see how you can fit in with the team we have a practical and an interview part, but yeah, I can't really speak too much for the working interview on this part.
Thanks. What about you, Aidan? Do you have any experience with working interviews?
Yeah, so I've done one and been the one. I've done I've headed up working interviews and been in working interviews myself. Basically, a working interview is just often like the first day on the job per se. So you're doing whatever you would typically do in a normal day. So be prepared to show off your hands-on skills, or do ask questions. Come in knowing what the organization is about. You'd be amazed about how many people apply for a job and don't know anything about the organization that they applied for. Yeah, so that's about it. And everything else that was said.
Great, thank you. And there's one other question about online courses. I think you all mentioned that you'd like to keep learning. So what are some of the courses that you feel you've really benefited from? Sorry, Samantha.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely really enjoy working on my continuing education for sure. I took a variety of different little courses when I was working in Ontario, and then after coming out to BC, I did my certified professional dog trainer certification, and a part of upkeeping that, maintaining that certification, is getting 36 continuing education units, credits, every 3 years in order to keep that certification. So I do a lot of mine through conferences. I know the BC SPCA out here does a symposium yearly that I'll attend. I do a lot of conferences through the organization that my organization is accredited through, the Assistance Dogs International, as well as International Guide Dog Foundation. So being able to find those conferences and attend if you can. Some of them require members only to attend. I personally do, as a dog trainer, I do courses through Fenzi Dog Sports as well. They've got a lot of trainer-directed courses, and I do conferences that are directed specifically towards dog training as well, like the Lemonade Conference is one that I've done 2 years in a row and really enjoyed. Clicker Expo is another one. Conferences are also another great way to network. So being able to stay involved with those is great, and keeping up that continuing education, because if you can keep, checking boxes on that resume to be able to show how engaged in the industry you are, it really shines for employers.
Great, thank you. Hannah?
So same thing, kind of as Samantha as well, is that, working in Ontario, you kind of have your ABT that you have to work with. So getting your credits for that. So as I'm sure you or most people know, if you're at least you're in the vet tech side of it, that you have to do these credits every 2 years. So you constantly have to find ways to keep up to make sure that you can continue on your registration. So I would say a big thing is using the Veterinary Support Personnel Network, so VSPN. is a great way too. I've done a lot of laboratory courses off of that because that's kind of my thing that I like to do, but they have so many more that you can do. And they're a great way to keep moving up or find new things that you might like. It's really neat. And they're pretty cheap too. And they can give you CE points as well that they're great to use. I've done some free ones like off of Coursera. I've done a couple actually in the UK. You got to look for, when you want to get into zookeeping or working with zoo animals, you got to look for any and everything. So I've done some courses off of a random Australia website that I just found, or I've done them from England. Like there's a bunch that you can do. And same like Samantha said, there's conferences that we do. So I do the AZVT one, so the Zoo Veterinary Technician one. They have conferences there that you can do online or virtual. I think in the States it'll be in person, but they're also going to do an online portion. The OAVT one I just did too. I was there. I was actually watching some of theirs as well every day. And then even for us, we have the Association for Zoo Keepers, where you can do courses off of that and work with handling, hand rearing. There's endless things that you can do. And especially if they're doing courses or conferences, it's a great way to network and just keep learning. Yeah.
Awesome. Aidan, do you have any additional thoughts and advice to add?
As far as veterinary assistants go, unfortunately, there's not too much out there by way of conferences and stuff that you can go to, but I have done the OREN Wildlife Rehabilitators course, both the basic one and the rabies one, and that was really interesting. But other than that, no, not really.
So I'm just looking to make sure if there's any other questions, as I know the time is coming up here. So we only have about 5 minutes left. So I was just wondering if we could end off with, if you could each leave students with one final nugget of advice concerning their careers, what would it be? Samantha, do you want to go first?
Can I defer and let Aidan go first? I feel that I got to take the brunt of the answers for all of them, and then I want to hear Aidan's nugget first.
Sure.
My biggest thing is when looking for a place to work, before even applying, ask your question, would I take my animal here and would I trust them with its care? If the answer is anything but yes, don't apply there. The other thing is all veterinary clinics are extremely busy right now. Apply, even if there isn't a posting, they're probably looking for someone. We're all short-staffed. There couldn't be a better time to be graduating or looking for a job, really. Yeah, that's about it.
Hannah?
I guess my piece of advice for everyone would be, don't give up on what you want to do. If there's an interest in zoo, it can be really hard to get into, but don't stop trying or trying to gain experience. It can be a long way and you'll find jobs to keep you aside. But I think coming to work every day and loving what you do is, for myself, I know I wouldn't have been happy with just sticking with dogs or cats. My mind was, I needed more than that. So I think really pushing yourself to get what you want to do, it makes work going to fun. You're not falling asleep because it's the same thing again. Like, you're constantly mentally stimulated, and I find that really helps me and makes me love coming to work. It doesn't feel like work because I work with my family, you know? So I think that's huge.
And Sam?
I'm trying to have Norman join in for my last question, but he's very tired and just keeps trying to sleep again. So yeah, this is Norm. I definitely, there we go. get out there and be open-minded. So when I started at Sheridan, I had a narrow view of what I wanted to use my animal care certificate for and what I didn't want to use it for. I have definitely in my time there and my co-ops opened my mind to the ample opportunities in this industry, in the animal care industry in general, within my specific guide and service dog industry, everything like that. So taking advantage of unique opportunities to try them on for size can be really helpful. And now Norman's going to go back to bed.
Good thing he's cute, huh? Well, I just wanted to take this opportunity and thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day today. That was incredible. We appreciate you joining us. The students gained valuable insight, and I can't thank you enough for participating in the panel discussion and sharing your story, experiences, and amazing advice with students. You guys truly had incredible advice for these students. So thank you. The students are always eager to hear from our grads as they find it relatable being able to hear from someone who is once in their shoes. So we honestly can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your busy schedule and being here with us today. I know all three of you are at work right now, so it's just thank you. The Career Expo is open until 3:30, so please go in and enjoy. Go look at the guide dogs, the zoo, all the other incredible career opportunities that are here with you today. So that's it for us, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye. Thanks for having us.
Bye. Thank you.